All right. So most, if not all of us, do not wake up this morning worrying about what restroom we feel most comfortable in. A friend of mine, William, who is a transgender female to male, spent most of his childhood in elementary school and middle schools worried about not only what restroom he felt more comfortable in, but what restroom he had to go to avoid getting beat up over the fact that he had to sit to pee. He'd get up and walk right by, and I guess his issue was people weren't okay with him having to sit to pee, so every now and then he gave him a grab to make sure that he was sitting down not only to pee. But just recently, California has passed a law known as Assembly Bill 1266, which allows persons who identify with a specific gender to use not only the facilities of that gender with which they feel most comfortable and identify, but also participate in sports in the gender they identify with. So, according to the Legislative Council Bureau, this bill would require that a pupil be determined to participate in sex-segregated schools, programs, and activities, including athletic teams and competitions, and use facilities consistent with his or her gender identity, irrespective of the gender listed on the pupil's records. So the difference between your sex and your gender is your sex is the what you're born with, the genitalia you're born with. So if I'm a male, but your gender is with which you identify. So you could be born a male but identify with a female. California recognizes that the psychological effects. Psychological effects on adolescents nationwide. Almost 82% of LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexual, or trans students reported being verbally harassed, while more than 38% reported being physically harassed, and roughly 18% reported being physically assaulted at school in 2011 because of their sexual orientation, according to a Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network, GLSEN, National School Climate Survey. So, on to that. So the legal text. So this is what I had read to you earlier, just so you guys get I guess, and to put it into retrospect, in essence, it has other provisions, but the main points of it are with regards to your facility use and your sports. Participating in sports consistent with the gender you identify. So those are also the most controversial, but I'm going to go ahead and highlight the rest of the bill. Class and course enrollment. So this is also part of the bill. The legal text is it is a policy of the state that elementary and secondary school classes and courses, including non-academic and elective classes and courses, be conducted without regard to the sex of the people enrolling in these classes. So in the past, for example, home economics was a very female-dominated course, and it used to be denied to a male because that was not your job as a man. You're the breadwinner. So this is part of the bill. The enrollment, which this is mostly on elective courses for the most part. They can't be denied based on the sole assumption of your gender or sex. Furthermore, on the course enrollment, a school district may not prohibit a pupil from enrolling in any class or course on the basis of the sex of the pupil. So again, it used to be prohibited if you were if you were a male or a female. Like females weren't allowed to do particular sports. Course requirements. A school district may not require a pupil of one sex to enroll in a particular class or course unless the same class or course is also required of the pupil of the opposite. So if like health in high school, for example, is required of all, but this is just to ensure that courses that are under requirements are equally required, not so avoid gender discrimination again. So that's what this bill is aiming to end. And then physical education, participation of in a particular physical education activity or sport, if required of pupils of one sex, shall be available to pupils of each sex. Physical ed in general is offered to both male and female, and obviously you're segregated. You get if you have activities for female and male, but if for whatever reason that segregation happens, you are as a student now allowed to choose what side. If they do males versus females, you're more than welcome to now pick the side you want to be on, other than without having the teacher or instructor put you in that side. So sports and restroom facilities, a pupil shall be permitted to participate in sex-segregated school programs and activities, including athletic teams and competition at these facilities consistent with his or her gender identity, irrespective of the gender listed on the pupil's records. So now what this bill is very frowned upon is because if, say, hypothetically speaking, I was born a man and now I'm a transgendered female, now I can participate in female sports, and a lot of people feel as though that's going to be incentive for parents to have your child go pro through the use of this very bill. But it's only a California law, so obviously it's in testing to see if that really is an incentive. However, it's very doubted. So, though it's very controversial, the bill in essence just highlights the class and course enrollments, course requirements, participation in physical ed, athletic funded events, and restroom comfortability wherever I can feel more comfortable in the restroom. For example, that's the restroom I'd be using. While now schools, because as an aftermath of this bill, the schools are now implementing unisex restrooms, which are found mostly in colleges, very rarely in public schools, and that is to aim at the comfortability of the child identifying with a particular sex not consistent with his biological sex. Thank you.
Someone broke it. You know that story? He told us about it. Dude got powerbomb. Boom, right there. It's real.
So Lance, share your thoughts with us, please.
It was cool. It was enlightening. Some of the stuff I knew about it already, but a lot of other things I didn't know. And his thesis statements were clear. Conclusion was cool, and seemed to calm down a little bit, bro. You good?
It's cool, man.
All right, well, I think you've got an interesting story to get the audience's attention. It's a bit awkward, but you explain it for the most part. It does sound like there's an issue about harassment that's being mixed with the issue of whether or not something is discriminatory. The harassment, of course, is kind of a separate issue. Is it discriminatory? And the argument appears to be, the advocates of the bill seem to say that there is some harm that is occurring to people because they are denied access to these facilities. And the first question was, okay, so what are the examples, what illustrations are there that people are being denied this access? And the only example that you come up with is home economics, which sounds to me like I'm not even sure how many places offer home economics anymore. And it sounds to me like it's a 1970s issue. I mean, that sounds like it's so 40 years ago that it's strange. I can't imagine that guys who wanted to take home economics or girls who wanted to take some other kind of class that had traditionally been assigned to guys are not able to do so and haven't been able to do so since this bill was passed or before this bill was passed. That seems to be a presupposition of the advocates of this particular piece of legislation, and I didn't really hear much proof on that. The stuff that did apply was that kids are sometimes harassed and, because of the gender that they identify with, and that's a problem. And I think is where you need to develop this argument a little bit more and show us that that is a fairly typical thing, it's problematic, and that in fact it's access to those facilities that makes that harder. So if guys who identify with girls get their asses kicked when they go into the boys' room by all the other guys, and they would feel more comfortable going into the girls' room to do that, that would be a good example of something that would justify this particular position. The controversy on this that you talk about toward the end is the notion that maybe people will be pursuing sports teams for a different gender than the one that they are identified with on their records. That's very hypothetical. Obviously, it's early in the process. We don't have any data on that. I'm sure that the critics of this legislation have a variety of issues that pop into their heads. That that was not the one that I was worried about. That somebody's I'm going to become a professional female athlete by starting in middle school by declaring myself I identify with the gender of a girl because I can't hit a backhand worth a damn against the guys that are always kicking my ass, so I identify more with the gender of a girl. I mean that's a hypothetical situation. We're early in that process, but we need to see a little bit more of what's going on here. To me, I'd also like some numbers. How many kids is this going to apply to in the schools? The LGBT is obviously the LGBs, are not in this category. It's in the other category that you're talking about. It's the
LGBs are also part of the category.
I know they're covered by it. The question is, do they need to be covered by it? Is that where the issue is? Is it because they're not the ones? I mean, the lesbian is not identifying with the other gender. She still sees herself as being a woman. So that, to me, I'm maybe that's not clear. Does it apply to people who have one set of equipment and identify with the other gender, or if they've got that set of equipment, identify with that gender, but they, like I said, what are the numbers on this? Like it sounds to me like the LGBs are one part and the T's are the other part, but I could be wrong on this. I don't know. What are the numbers on that? That's one of the things that I think would help a little bit. The visuals they're just text, and it's most of it you explained as you went through, so I don't really know that we need that. Maybe what some of the options are, or maybe what some of the potential criticisms would be, you could bullet point those sorts of things, and that would have given you something maybe a little bit more useful and purposeful for a comparison. All right, thank you.